Hello, welcome to you all. Again, it is a difficult time for all of us and a difficult task for all of us. All enterprises, as well as the 500 million workforce in India, is really anxiously looking at the government of India for any kind of help for their daily sustenance. Based on the backdrop of my earlier discussion on the lockdown, we have around 500 million unorganized workforce in India having no social security for them except a few social insurance or a nominal welfare fund for those kind of unorganized workers. We have around 5% of the state government and central government, public sector undertakings, which are all organized. The rest of the 6 to 7% of the organized sector is on the private sector. We have been discussing, we have been agitating, we have been trying to implement all kind of social security from the inception of the 1947, our independence. Nothing much has been done for that. Only a bit of tinkering here and there the government of India could do. When we talk about the social security, only 10% of the Indian workforce has got social security. We talk about Provident Fund, we talk about ESI, we talk about minimum wages, payment of wages, gratuity, etc. That only constitutes the 10% of the total workforce. So, in fact, if you look at the social security part of the government of India, it is really, I am really ashamed to think about a social security or social net for the unorganized workers is still a dream. We are universalizing the social security. Our aim is to universalize the social security for around 50 crores of Indian workforce. Social security for the unorganized workforce is still a dream for all of us. The rest of the 8% is organized have statutes, both central and the state. To amalgamate and simplify and rationalize the changes, we should be looking forward from years together. The conventional employer-employee relationship is slowly disappearing. The gig workers, the gig economy, the freelance economy, and the remote working has been evolved, and it is evolving slowly over a period of time, and all of a sudden, after the lockdown, there is a remote working trend has been evolved. The companies have been not allowing the employees to sit at home and do a remote working. Now there is no other alternative. Now everybody is resorting to remote work, except manufacturing industries. From the traditional salary to performance-driven compensation in the new economic scenario, the traditional concept of employer and the traditional salary to a performance-driven compensation to the new era is emerging. Technology is reshaping the future of the work. The dynamics in the business world has been changed. Tech capital of the world, you look at Silicon Valley, the tech capital of the world in California, has classified the gig workers as employees. Here if you look at Uber, Zomato, etc., they're all freelancers. There is no employer-employee relationship. In order to bring them under the ambit of the social security scheme, the Silicon Valley at California has decided to specifically include the gig workers as employees to extend the social security benefit. That is the outlook of a developed country. India have to still go ahead for that. Life and livelihood of the citizens are at stake. See, we have a number of regulatory control holding us for development. When I talk about regulatory control, I'll say the regulatory cholesterol. We have 44 labor central statutes and a number of returns to be filed, a number of monthly, yearly, quarterly, and many other filings has to be done. Over and above, every month there will be amendments, additions, deletions. As a result, a normal industrialist find it difficult to file the returns in time because it requires high complexities, so that the ordinary common industrialists find it difficult to do it, and you have to depend on others. So that is the reason why in a developed economy, in a developed country like US, where the business is ease to function a businessman, to start a businessman, it is an ease. That is why Government of India is aiming at ease of doing the business. I have been harping on for the last 5 to 6 years of ease of doing the business. The technology changes, but it takes time. We are still in the slow process of technological advancement. We should learn how to learn the future of education. We should learn how to learn, not learning alone. Land, labor and capital. Finance handicapped with labor, and labor handicapped with finance. Our industrialists are handicapped with labor. When a labor means a tech labor. An industrialist coming to India, he finds it difficult to get a tech-oriented, highly technical labor. And the labor on the side is handicapped with finance, but he is not properly supported by the employer. Labor reforms due to the outdated labor statutes from the 1947 onwards. There are statutes on pre-independence and after the independence, starting from the Employee Compensation Act, we call it as earlier Workmen Compensation Act of 1923. There has not been much changes. You look at the Industrial Disputes Act, no much changes. You look at the Provident Fund, you look at the ESI, you look at the gratuity, a bit of tinkering here and there is going on for years together, and the 8% of the organized sector employees are also not within the reach of the labor statutes because there is so much of complexity. So we have to ease the process so that the employer, he will feel at ease and he will come and invest in India. Same way the employees will also feel at ease to get salary and to get the benefit from the employer. When the employer and employee will feel it ease to start the business, and it's a joint venture, employer and employee, the process should be a two-way joint effort. You look at the Government of India, there are 58 ministries for the Government of India, and for ease of doing the business, we are still far away to achieve that. You look at Japan. Japan has got only 8 ministries, and US got 14 ministries, and UK 21 ministries. Life and livelihood of the citizens and those countries are more easier than that of India. So making more and more number of ministries cannot solve the problem. So more ministers, more ministries, more departments will not suffice unless you should be able to cater the needs of the employer as well as the employees. Then only employers will come to India. Employees will be interested in upbringing, interested in sharpening the skill, skilling, reskilling, and multi-skilling the employees should be made available. We have around 800 universities in India, but unfortunately, recently only 30 universities have started online education. Online education is still an imagination for an ordinary employee. We still think of the old universities where you have to register and apply for examination. Online education we have to improve upon. I'm talking about 800 universities, odd universities in India. We have started only online education, only around 30 universities. So we'll have to learn and relearn. We'll have to understand how to learn. That we'll have to improve upon. The legal obligation to pay wages based on central and the state circulars have created a lot of confusion recently. On 29 March 2020, throughout India, the Home Ministry has issued with a circular that all employers should not terminate the casual, temporary, Betheli contract employees whatsoever with the reason. I will say, I have no hesitation to say, the right and the livelihood of the employees is only a humanitarian consideration. The government cannot mandate to pay a salary to the employees because the statute doesn't empower that. Unfortunately, under two acts government has referred in the circular on 29/3/2020, followed by a number of circulars by the labor commissioners of the respective states and various other, including Provident Fund has prescribed, directed that no employer should not discontinue the employees nor reduce the wages of employees. See, in an economy where we are in an emerging economy where industrialists are really upset with the notification, in a place, in an industry where there is no income from the employer, income for the employer, to generate employment, to generate money and then pay to the salary to the employees has become a difficult task. Over and above, when the employees is under distress, tension, etc., the circulars are coming out in the central and the state as though it is a mandate on the part of the employer to pay wages during the lockdown period. I'll say, I have no hesitation to say, as a humanitarian ground, an employer should pay to the employee because employees are part and parcel of the organization. So as a human aspect of the human side, yes, you should pay depending upon pocket, depending on your pocket. If you have enough reserve, I'll say definitely the employer should shell out wages or salary to the employee depending upon the need-based. It may be 10%, 15%, 50%, all depends upon the need-based. The employee should be paid, but not on the mandate of the employer. On the other side, what I have noticed is in the notifications starting from 29th, the 20th, the state government and the central government, the two acts referred is Disaster Management Act of 2005. And the authorities have quoted section 10(2), subsection 1 of the Act, which empowers the authority to give a directive or an advice to the establishment to pay salary to the employees. The section doesn't mandate that. By if you have a look at the section, it only empowers when a disaster occurs. The central as well as the state executive council can come out with the suggestions to combat the disaster, various methods and measure. The object of the act is not to release salary to the employees. The purpose and object of the disaster management is definitely not to pay the wages to the employees. So unfortunately, the central government has come out with a directive, or I can say it is an advisory in nature, to give salary not only to the regular employees, it says, to the casuals and to the contract employees. As a matter of fact, casual employment is not a permanent in nature. The very fact casual itself is the morning the relationship of employer-employee starts. And at the end of the evening, the relationship disappears. When the nature of the job is casual in nature, how can the government give a direction that casual employees should not be discontinued? Because every day the discontinuation of the employer-employee relationship, and in the next morning the relationship starts. The second thing is the contract employees' wages to be paid. As a matter of fact, the wages payable to the contract employees are the immediate employer. The principal employer is not the employer, both under the Industrial Disputes Act and under the Payment of Wages Act. It is a immediate employer who will have to pay. The principal employer is not the employer to be defined under the Industrial Disputes Act. So on that count also, the employer is not liable to pay wages legally under the Disaster Management Act, section 10(2), subsection 1. Coming to the next act is the Epidemic Disease Act of 1897, a very old act which has come out. Now the government has proposed for an ordinance, Government of India, I think the President of India has signed, wherein a new provision has been incorporated. If an employer has engaged an employee, and if an employee is under a COVID disease occurrence, the employer will be punishable with an imprisonment of 5 years with a huge penalty. So that is something which is which can be appreciated. But the fact remains that the legality of the salary or the wages payable under the Disaster Management Act 2005 as well as the Epidemic Disease Act cannot hold good, and it will have no legal force. Coming to the third question of layoff to be declared by the employer. If you look at the layoff provision in the Industrial Dispute Act of 1947, layoff can be declared only to a plantation employees, a mine employees under the mine, or a plantation, mine, and a factory under the Factories Act. Unfortunately, majority of our employees are employed other than these three categories. Section 25(c)(d)(e) contemplates that only a plantation, mine, or a factory employees can only be laid off. And if you lay off any other employees other than these three, namely plantation, factory, and mine, you have no right to lay off, and the employer is entitled to pay 100% full wages to the employee. So the proposition of laying off and paying 50% layoff compensate to the employees will not hold good before the eyes of law. If you look at the closure proposed by the Government of India, as a matter of fact, there is no closure. The Industrial Disputes Act 1947 defines closure as a permanent shutting down of an establishment. And here it is not a closure. It is a temporary stoppage of work due to a epidemic. And it is not a closure. It is a temporary stoppage of work. So the word used as closure and compensation, closure compensation envisaged under these circulars has no legal force. If at all, if it is a closure, genuine closure, which is a permanent closure, then you will have to pay closure compensation as though you have retrenched the employees. When you retrench the employees, you will have to pay retrenchment compensation at the rate of 15 days pay for every completed year of continuous service with the notice pay. So in other words, the proposal by the central and the state to pay wages to all the employees, whether casual, temporary, contract, etc., or really will not hold good before the eyes of law. And I will say these notifications have no legal support, but but as an employer, I'll say employer is morally obliged to pay. When I talk about moral obligation and a statutory obligation is different. Statutory means you'll have to enforce it through a statute, and the normal legislation, labor laws support for enforcing of the non-payment of the wages. And I consider these notifications are advisory in nature. I appreciate this are all advisory in nature and not statutory in nature. If you look at the the various supports given to the other countries, we'll have to look at the global examples. Government across the globe has aided the employer. You look at Denmark has announced 75% of wages to the employees, the government side. You look at Canada, the wages subsidy scheme has been introduced. You look at England, where 80% of the wages subsidy has been supported by the government. And you look at Malaysia, Singapore, etc., there is subsidy, insurance, etc., on the side of the employer to the employees. I'll be omitting to include Australia, Netherlands, New Zealand, etc. They have extended different kinds of support to the employees during the COVID period. But the fact remains, they're all the developed countries where the government can afford to do that. But unfortunately, India being a poor country where 60% of the Indian population is below the poverty line, the government cannot afford to extend support to the industrialists for compensating or recouping their wages, etc. But I cannot forget the matter. Even though the government of India cannot support the industrialists, at least the government of India should not threaten the employers by using the word the employer is mandatorily bound to pay wages to the casual, temporary, Bethely contract workers. Industrialists are panicked. Most of the industrialists, particularly medium-sized industrialists, when I talk about multinationals, companies like Tata's or Infosys or HP, these are the companies not bothered about this. They can afford to pay that from the reserve. There is another reason for those employers, because they wanted to retain the talented employees. For that, they will have to pay necessary compensation to retain the employees. Take for example of a unskilled or semi-skilled employee employed by the employer. That employee cannot afford to pay salary to that employees, because the employer will have huge financial liability with the banks by taking loans. And when the banks are tightening the employer to repay the loan, even the moratorium is also not introduced. It is only a moratorium for 3 months by the government of India as a result of the directive by the Reserve Bank of India. Is it the kind of support the government should do that? Government should be more generous in extending a moratorium so that there should not be an interest on interest to the employers. You should not upset the employer. The result is no industrialist will be interested to come to India to invest. Because once you come and start an industry, it's a permanent headache to the employer, and you cannot get out from the clutches of the government by unnecessary creating issues one after another. So I'll conclude by saying India, the government of India, the directives and circulars are only mandatory or not mandatory. It's only advisory in nature. And the unfortunate part of the government is government has not issued any package for the businessman till date. You've been hearing all packages of the finance minister. First package, now waiting for the second package. Even that package is 1% of the total GDP, whereas all developed countries are extending 5 to 10 to 15% of the GDP is extended to the employer as well as employees. But there is no package on the side of the employer. The labor is handicapped, as I said, is handicapped with finance. And the finance is handicapped with sufficient highly technical labor to run the industry. If you don't ease the process, I don't think Government of India can invite more and more employers in the future. So, to conclude, I will say we should attempt the impossibilities if not achieving that. We should think of something which is not achievable, the impossibles, and the time will come where we will be able, at least we will be nearing to that achievement. We should think and aspire which are impossible. The Government of India, the enterprises, the private enterprises, the employees, etc., should aspire and think of the impossibilities. And if we join together and think of the impossibilities, I hope the corona, the lockdown after a few days or a few months or a few weeks, we will all can join together and work together for a prosperous India. Let us hope all the best and have an optimistic view. Thank you very much.